1. If only this was not a true story. Here are the details. So my husband, myself, and my brother-in-law moved into a neighborhood recently in January. It's pretty quiet here and peaceful, except for us a little. But I swear we're not trying to be bad neighbors. 2 days ago, my husband was coming home and there was this lady who had fallen along the road. Being the gentleman he is, he stopped to help her out and make sure she was okay. Ended up she lives a few spots down from us, so he drove her home. Later that day, she shows up. I meet her. She's a little off, but seems okay. It was weird she kept hugging me and was trying to hug my husband. It was really weird. So we talk a little. She goes home. At this point, I'm thinking, I know 3 women in the neighborhood. Cool. I don't know anyone here and I'm new to the area, so it's a good thing. Maybe we can do a book club or something. Yesterday, we wake up to someone beating the door really hard. We're saying, who the heck is beating on our door this early in the morning on a Saturday? It's her. My husband had me go to the door because he didn't want to be rude to a lady. Come on, man. He is a true southern gentleman wrapped up in a blue-collar package, but goes out of his way to never be disrespectful of women in any way. But he is angry. Being the brutally honest man, he says what he thinks and feels, and you can be okay with it or not. It doesn't matter either way to him, that's your problem. So I reluctantly go. I answered the door. She's wanting to go to the store. Needing to do my errands, I agree she can go with me. It's barely 7 a.m. I told her I would be a few minutes. She sat down in the patio and immediately starts barking orders, demanding me to adjust the umbrella so she doesn't get burnt by the sun. I'm a redhead, so I get hiding from the sun, then ordered me to bring her a drink and hurry up about it. I was a good host, not cursing her off as I really wanted to, being respectful of elders. Dang those Southern Belle manners my Gramps taught me. I told her I would be a few minutes getting dressed and getting my husband's day started, but I wouldn't take too long. I started to make some instant coffee, wash my face, and throw on some shorts. So maybe 10 to 15 minutes needed tops. She was banging on the side of our house every few minutes, complaining I was too slow. While I was getting ready, my husband and I had a quick talk and agreed that this is a one-time arrangement because she was being ridiculous. Finally, I am ready, and she wanted me to somehow hoist her up like my husband did to get her in the truck. I'm a little bitty thing, tall at 5'9", but only 140 pounds, let alone 51 years and disabled. This is going to be interesting. She outweighs me by at least 20 pounds, and I am this tall, skinny woman. She then started fussing that husband's truck was so big and made it tricky to get in. I laughed, agreed, and told her she was preaching to the choir. I knew all about it. Quickly, I give her quick, simple instructions on how to get into the truck. To put her left foot on the rail and stand up, then sit down. She, of course, stepped up with her right foot, which twists your body in the wrong direction, making it impossible to now get in the truck. I know, I did this every day for weeks before I figured it out. She's in. Time to go. We live about 10 miles from the big blue store. Straight shot, easy drive. Music was playing. It's a good drive. She reaches into her bag, pulls out a huge bottle of wine and starts chugging. Now, we don't drink anything stronger than Dr. Pepper in our house. Excellent. And we definitely don't drink alcohol in our vehicles, never have. Flabbergasted, thinking this woman has an open container in our truck while I'm driving in a heavily patrolled area. Military base with a large town that it butts up to, so there are MPs to your left and county and local PD everywhere. Here I am, stuck in the middle with you. I'm starting to feel uncomfortable with the situation, worried I was going to get pulled over because of this woman and have unnecessary wasting their and my time. Heck, I could get a ticket. This woman could be wanted and I don't know it. That bag she carries is huge. I know she has that wine in there. What else could be in that bag? Needless, my anxiety was through the roof. We get to the store. She goes off for a handicap cart, saying she is going to grab a few things and will wait by the checkout for me right here up front. I reminded her that if she needed me, my number was in her phone under Baby Girl, and my husband's was there, and I knew she knew his name. But I didn't want her to need me and not be able to get me. 30 minutes later, my husband calls. He's been called into work, and I need to come home ASAP. Okay, on the way. I grabbed a bag of cat food and headed to the front. It's been maybe 35, 40 minutes. She should be done. She wasn't at the front. I waited a few minutes, then started searching the store. I had saved my number into her phone and my husband's, but had forgotten to add hers to mine. Hey. So I searched the store several times over. My husband calls back. Babe, I gotta go. Maybe she's waiting in the truck. I check out to go to the truck. She's not there. I put everything in the truck and head back inside, searching the store for at least another 30 minutes, and she is nowhere to be found. My husband was wanting me to just leave, damn right, but I didn't want to strand the lady in town with no way home. Needless to say, it caused a problem. He suggested to try paging her, so off to customer service I go. On the way, I remembered I don't know her full name. She has been calling me baby girl, what my husband calls me. She won't know my proper name either, since she hadn't shut up long enough to learn it. Speaking with the manager and explaining my weird, complicated situation, the manager knew exactly who I was missing. I had a feeling he might. She had left the store over 2 hours before to meet up with friends for a party she was telling everyone in line drunk. She also is suspected of drinking in the store. Realizing she didn't even try to let me know she was leaving, just made her purchases and... F you, I'm out of here. Like I'm her bloody Uber driver. I've been searching frantically for hours, not wanting to leave my neighbor 10 miles from home, trying to be decent. And she didn't even have the integrity to thank me and say I'm leaving with my friends, see you in the neighborhood. Nothing. My husband had to miss work, costing us extra income we really need right now. So he wasn't happy this happened. I drove home and we salvaged what we could of the day. A few hours later, we see her walking to our house. I meet her in the front yard. Told her 5 times to leave politely. She refused. My husband came out and also nicely asked her to leave. Why we wanted her to leave and that she should and not to ever return. She kept on and he bellowed, "Leave!" Yay! She left. Good. Story over. This morning, my husband leaves for work. I sleep in a little. My brother-in-law, who has a traumatic brain injury, lives with us. Evidently, when she knocked on the door, he recognized from the day before. He thought it was okay to let her in the house since she wanted to come in really bad. I woke up and heard a woman's voice and didn't think anything about it. It's just the TV. I walked around the corner and she's sitting on my couch. Trying not to lose my cool, I asked her what part of leave and not come back did you not understand? Get out of my house now. This woman had the audacity to tell me no in my house and refuse to leave. I'm faced with 2 choices. Go old school on her or call the police. I went with the police. She continued to refuse to go with the non-emergency police officer on the phone. I told her to leave. They are telling her to leave. She continued to refuse to go. So, they were going to send a patrol car. I finally had my fill of this chick. I started screaming, "Go now, get out of my damn house or I'm going to put you outside physically, and then I'm going to press charges when they get here." She finally laughed. Gosh, I hope she doesn't come banging on the door in the morning. This woman is obsessive, and it was freaking me out a little. The poor police officer was very kind. She told me she would put the call in the log as a record of me telling her to leave. So now the house is quiet. My brother-in-law is okay, and now understands this chick isn't welcome under any circumstances. Please don't let her in again. Stay away from her and let us know if you see her coming or hear her voice. So we're dealing with this woman who reminds us of the Glenn Close character in Fatal Attraction, with a platonic association at best twist, added in to switch it up a little bit. I'm wondering if she gets it, don't care, has a psychiatric issue, or mental defect. Or if she's so inebriated she doesn't remember, maybe all of the above. Hellfreezer's note, whether it is that she just doesn't understand, or has such a vulgar personality that she doesn't care. Kind of irrelevant, really, at this point. You don't want her around, she shouldn't be around. If you haven't already done so, I would suggest blocking her number because it's probably going to lead to harassing calls and messages at some point. Unless you want to let her actually send those messages, which case you could actually log those and archive them, so when you have to contact the police again, you would have those as reference. Personally, I just wouldn't want to deal with the stress. I'd rather keep her out of my life. I suspect much of her personality is down to alcohol abuse. Maybe she's a different person when she's sober. Or maybe she's so insufferable she can't stand to live with herself while sober. Doesn't really matter, as I say, at the end of the day. You have a right to your peace and quiet. While I don't understand what your brother-in-law's prognosis is regarding his brain injury, I do hope he's doing well and is able to improve somewhat. 2. Neighbour that moved in last year has been nothing but horny over property lines. We met the son of the previous owner, now deceased, and told us the way our property is laid out has been the way it has been for over 50 years, but a sliver of our next-door neighbour's garage and his entire woodshed is on our property. But we didn't really care or want to make a big deal. Reason being, we're in a semi-rural setting and we're up on a hill a ways back from the main road, and his house and buildings are down below, closer to the road. That neighbour we spoke a few times to, but shortly listed their house and moved. It sat on the market vacant for quite a while. Then one evening in late spring at night, we met a fellow and his then girlfriend roaming the backyard of that neighbour's house. They walked up to us in our backyard and introduced themselves, and saying he put an offer in on the house, and saying apparently his lot is 120 feet, and when he moves in he's going to straighten out the property lines, etc. Then, realizing he already anticipated a property line dispute, we didn't really catch on to that's what he was implying. We didn't think much of it because we moved out where we were for peace and quiet and just didn't care about bickering over such things. A few months went by. I never seen him, but seen some stuff move into the neighbour's yard. One day he again comes over to me on my property while I was weed whacking in my front yard, and said he was going to rent a metal detector to find the property stake. Again, didn't really care, and showed him no such interest and said, "All right," and kept going on my business. Again, a few more weeks later he told me he found the stake, and I told him I'm glad for him to have found it, but I'm not too worried about it, and we had a casual conversation, and whatever. Then in late fall of November I'm outside in my backyard doing some work, and this guy is popping in and out of the bush from his backyard into my backyard with a long tape measure, claiming 120 feet, and he found the property stake issue was that his 120 ended up into what I presumed was my yard. My wife lost it on the guy, and I tried to be more civil about it, but he walked away pouting. Yay, wife? Then a month later, surveyors show up in my backyard, placing pegs and ribbon and hammering stakes into what was definitely beyond his 120 feet. I talked to the surveyor, but he barely spoke English, so that got nowhere. Then a week later, he had his lawyer send us a strongly worded letter giving us a date to get our stuff off his property, and that we weren't entitled to any rights over the land in dispute. Legally not true. Well, that's funny, because A, I never received a copy of the survey to see if they said how many feet they were allowing themselves to be off, by any. B, I has never seen documentation. He really has 120 feet from his fence line on the opposite side of his yard. Then C, I'm not a litigation lawyer, but I knew about adverse possession, and I had thought ahead and got the son of the previous owner to write and sign a letter attesting the property has been the way it has been for over 50 years, which is pretty obvious because the trees are cut out and the grass has been tamed. He also called a police officer over the whole situation, which told him and I there is nothing he can do, but wanted us to work together to come up with a solution to avoid court. That night I took out the stakes because I was told I was allowed to remove the wooden pegs since it was a shared property line, just don't remove the metal ones, even though they are on my side of the property without a doubt, if his 120 is true. He then sent his 2 early 20s daughter up the hill and bush in his backyard up to our backyard, and drove new wooden stakes in and spray-painted orange lines, which then spattered all over my personal items, such as my antique tractor. It's going to cost him to get that repaired, isn't it? Wood I was going to use for building, etc. Well, make sure you itemize everything. Then I noticed this guy put a camera in his backyard that faced my backyard in front of my garage, so he can see when I come and drive up my way or not. That night, I went and had a chat with him and tried to be mature and talk civilly about coming to an agreement and to apologize on my wife's behalf for going off on him. I first offered to pay to update the property lines, which he didn't say yes or no to, but I caught the vibe he didn't really want to, so then I offered to buy it off him, which I saw caught his attention, and I reassured him I would pay for the new surveying, the land in question, and everything, because he was complaining his survey was so expensive. So I told him he would make the money back on the survey and more. Then he came with the idea of sharing the land and making some sort of easement agreement. I didn't really want to do that, but I said okay just for the simplicity of trying to cooperate and be civil with him. You cannot be civil with uncivilized people. He didn't say for sure that's what he would do, but he had to go to work soon since he was on nights, and I gave him my number so he can call or text me so we can meet again to talk about an agreement. Fast forward 3 months, he fell off the face of the earth. His lights have been off, his vehicle isn't there, and his driveway hasn't been getting plowed of snow, and his mailbox flag is up for weeks. We remembered when we first met him he mentioned something about going away for winter, since we are in Canada and get cold winters, so figured he just took off and will be back in the spring. 2 weeks ago I got a text saying civil litigation has begun, blah blah blah. I was given ample time to move my stuff off their land, etc., and I asked who it was, and he said, "Your next-door neighbor." So I told him I wasn't interested in starting a court case with him, and I was trying to be civil, and brought up my offers of the easement agreement, and reaffirmed I was trying to be civil to work with him, and he didn't respond. Today he texted me again saying he wants his acreage back, which isn't even an acre, more like 1/4 of an acre, and saying he spoke to the Justice of Peace and has a new lawyer and they recommended him to monitor the area and give me a deadline until the end of April, etc. At this point, I'm getting really annoyed, and I told him I have an argument for adverse possession, and I'm willing to work with him and be civil, and I'm offering him solutions. I also told him that my lawyer told me not to move anything until him and I see a copy of the survey, because my lawyer thinks the surveyor messed up, because he tied my neighbor's property stake in line with a hydro easement stake. But we don't know if that marker marks the lot lines, or just the width of the hydro easement, which I also brought up to him. I tried explaining that to him because the property has been this way. It doesn't mean his survey is as simple as, this is mine, that's yours anymore. I also tried explaining to him a second time, everything is covered in snow and ice, so I can't move anything off the disputed land because it's frozen. Honest to God, this guy has been nothing but a little crybaby over the property lines. The questioned area is way uphill for him through bush, whereas for me, it's right in plain view of my back windows and is wide open next to my garage. I don't even understand what his wanting is for it. Right next to his driveway is a little green garden that obviously the people before him, or even before them, planted, and it turned out to be on my side, and I couldn't care less for it, which I brought up to him. He can have whatever, but he's so obsessed with property lines he doesn't want it because it's not within the stakes. We moved us and our kids to the country to get away from stuff like this, but this guy brought the drama out here, and we are incredibly done with this guy. Hellfreezers note, the only viable solution you have here is to get your own survey done, and that should be your top priority, so get that taken care of as soon as the weather permits. At that point, you then have two options. You can make sure the property lines are enforced. That includes the little bit of your land that he's comfortable using, and make sure he can no longer use that, and then let him have the little bit of his land that he wants. You don't really seem to care much either way. This mostly seems to be his problem, but he won't stop harassing you until it's resolved. Or you can go the route of adverse possession, which you clearly understand. This man is obviously missing something significant in his life that he's choosing to obsess over this. In point of fact, the property issues should have been resolved before he moved into the property. But 50 years is a long time. I believe that's what you said in the story. And really, if you just want to keep things exactly as they are, it should allow you to effectively redraw those lines. 3. I live in the UK, so I have lived in a quiet little neighbourhood for about 15 years of my 22 years alive. It's been nothing but pleasant. A few years ago, a new family moved in next to us, a young couple and 3 kids. They are the worst neighbours I've ever known. We've had multiple people come and go in our neighbourhood, all pleasant and respectful, but this lot are straight from the cliché Worst Neighbours book. So a list of what they do that annoys me, as if I had to explain everything in depth I'd be here forever. They bang and clatter most of the day, then most of the night. Their kids run riot unsupervised, kicking balls into our garden and at our glass conservatory. They throw rubbish down the side of our conservatory and fence where there's a small gap, so it's hard to reach anything. We even found a dirty nappy once. The bloke calls himself a handyman and has done the worst renovation job on his driveway. No, jack of all trades, master of none, making it so steep that he can't even park on it. And his garden looks like a slum. He left an old bathtub and other crap in his front garden for months. They've installed ridiculously bright LED lights all over that they leave on all night and shine into our rooms. They constantly have guests round that block our way, despite being told repeatedly to move. They also block other neighbors' driveways. They have multiple dogs in cages outside that stink of crap, and the smell spreads all over. It's awful in the summer, and I'm pretty sure they have a puppy farm in their garage, report them. Also to mention, our houses are attached. Our gardens are attached. We have a fence on the back garden, which we agreed to pay half for, and then he's now trying to get a surprise £200 out of us. Not agreed at the start, for no reason other than labour. We agreed at the start the total was £780, and we pay £390. There's so much more that they do, but I just don't know what to do anymore. My man feels unsafe, and this guy's a bit unstable, and he threatened people with his hunting rifle before. We have not done anything yet, really because of fear of what they'll do, but also because we don't really want to feud with the neighbours, but it's getting ridiculous. It's like they think they're the only ones that live here. My mum is planning on sending her older brother round, who's an ex-marine and firefighter, to have a word with the bloke. What can we do? Can we call the council? Yes! Will that even do anything? Help? Also, not to mention, they once threw loose rat poison around their garden and under our fence, which our dog almost died from. They claim they had an unseen pest. Look in the mirror then. Who throws poison down when they don't know what they're poisoning? Our dog got a hold of it and we had to take him to the vet. Luckily, he's okay. Hellfreezer's note. Yeah, you should definitely be calling the council. I'm not entirely clear if you own your house or if you rent, but yeah, here's the thing. You can't leave trash in your garden for extended periods of time. Is your house a council house? Because not maintaining the property is something that's agreed to in the lease. I know this because I was ill for an extended period of time and my garden wasn't maintained the way it should. And so rather annoyingly, just up at the time period I was thinking I'd better go and get that tamed, got a letter saying, oh, you better go and maintain that, which is, yep, was about to do that anyway, but thanks for the encouragement. So if that's the case there with you folks, I'm guessing from some of the terminology you used, you're down in England. They will be required to maintain the property as part of their agreement as renting it. And even if it isn't a council house and they own it, the treatment of the dogs certainly warrants a call to somebody. The smell alone has got to be a public health hazard. And you suspect a puppy farm? Not legal, mate. It's not legal, so yeah. What can you do? Anonymous calls is what you can do. They'll probably assume it was you, but they won't be able to prove it. Though I really do hope for your sake they're renting, because it sounds like the state they've got the place in, they'll be kicked out eventually if they don't clean things up. I'm also curious about the hunting rifle situation. You do need a certificate to go hunting in the UK, which of course will restrict what you can do with a gun. I mean, really, you should only have your gun out when you're on land which you have permission to be on while hunting. Overlooking the fact that just threatening someone with a gun is wrong. Your neighbour's doing lots of things that should be getting them into trouble, but nobody's getting them into trouble. I understand safety is a concern, but these people have been getting away with their behaviour consistently for years, it sounds like, and they're now emboldened. 4. I had this weird lady that, had no sense of boundaries. By the second month that I knew her, she wanted me to keep her apartment keys safe for her. Like what? That makes literally no sense, so I refused. A month after that, she called me in a panic about needing to come upstairs because she needed help. So I said, yeah, that's fine. I felt genuinely worried. When she came upstairs, she had a box labeled eggs on it, and she explained that it had her laptop in it, and that she had to keep it safe. I didn't really want to, but I also felt bad for her, so I said yes. I figured it was just some crummy old laptop, so it wasn't a big deal. Over the course of a year, she started adding more and more boxes while asking way too many favors of me. It was so annoying. One day, I counted how many times she came over in a month, and it was around 20 times. She would basically come upstairs to lock herself in my bathroom and go through her boxes. Other days, she would come up and use my phone to make calls because she was convinced the hackers had taken over her phone. Then she would just use that time to bitch out customer service employees using my phone. She's done really weird stuff. She once called me from the neighboring apartment complex's phone one time, when I was not responding to her, and she was cycling through new phone numbers every week. Over time, the stack of boxes started taking up a good portion of my living room. I guess I should also mention that this lady just has a lot of random clutter in general. I was already feeling uncomfortable by now, and she sent me a text saying that she needed to come in because she needed to get her social security card. This just made me even more weirded out by the whole situation because, why keep something like that with a total stranger? I just wanted these boxes gone by this point. I think around this time she had also pulled out her spare apartment keys from those boxes, even though I told her I didn't want her apartment keys. She's over here convinced that people are breaking into her apartment every day, and now she's keeping the keys to her home with me. That puts me in such a bad position. If she just loses one thing, then she could easily blame me for it. The tipping point was when she came upstairs with a big bag of pills and wanted me to keep them safe for her. She told me they were for migraines and that her doctor was refusing to give her any more, and that's why she needed to keep the pills with me. Which resulted in a back and forth where I obviously didn't want to keep her pills in my apartment, but she just kept pushing and pushing until I finally put my foot down. Then it got weird. She didn't say anything, but stared at me for a good long moment, and then started scratching something in her pocket. What? I asked her, "Are you okay?" And then she blew up on me. A lot of what she said didn't make any sense. Something about me knowing something about the medical industry because of my job, and that related to her pills somehow. That I knew about the ritual that her previous neighbor had used to store her boxes to keep them safe. That she had helped so many people in her life and I wasn't helping her. There was more, I can't remember. This little exchange happened a few months ago, I think. Right, so, she lost her job. Or quit, I don't know. Actually, that's another thing. Another long one. So I had lost my job months ago in August 2024. I'm 90% sure she was watching my car because she asked why I wasn't going to work. I wasn't in the right mindset, and honestly, this lady annoys the hell out of me, so I didn't tell her. I just said I was on vacation. Well, fast forward a few months, and she needed help because her car battery was dead. This got me thinking to myself, why does this lady even drive? I don't think I've ever seen her get in her car, now that I think about it. I found out she was parking on the other side of the apartment complex, which I found a little weird. I told myself that maybe she just liked to walk. I think I was wrong about that. Ever since that day, she started parking in the normal area for where we live. Okay. Well, fast forward again, and she tells me that she had gotten fired from her old job, and she needed help finding a new one. I felt really bad for her, so I said yes. I mean, she was already inside my place anyway, so I might as well. Then the conversation turned to my new workplace, and if she could apply there. Hell no. I tried to dissuade her from it politely, but she was really dead set on applying to my new work. This really sucked for me, but at the time, being unemployed is pretty horrible, and I felt sympathy, so I accepted it. One day, during a random phone call from her, she mentioned being tired from working the forklift all day. I realized, that's what she did at her old job. Didn't she say she got fired? Did she really just use that to manipulate me? I was honestly pretty angry. Seriously, why? Getting fired destroyed me. Well, the day that her interview at my new job comes along, she ends up 30 minutes late and doesn't get the job. Yay! Thank God, I don't like that she knows where I work now, but at least I don't have to deal with her every single day. Shoot me, she called me again, asking for my boss's name and a bunch of other stuff about my job. And I suggested probably trying to cast a wider net. She eventually lands a job somewhere else away from me. All was good and dandy. But I still wanted to move away from her and just be done with it all. By this time, I had already asked her to take the boxes back. I tried to be nice about it, but she got all victim-y. She resisted and acted like I was angry. I was a little angry, just tired of this weird, bizarre nonsense. She starts taking boxes back, little by little, while also taking her sweet time about it. Then she got sick when there was just one box left for her to take back. In my mind, I had a feeling something like this would have happened. I had already made plans to move in March 2025, so I told myself, fine, I'll just hold off until March. Then one random day she knocked on my door. I didn't answer. She called me and I didn't answer. Then she left a text message saying that she left her boxes outside of my door and if I could take them in. Thanks. Sure enough, I step outside and there they are again. But I kept telling myself, I'm gone in March, it's fine. So I took the boxes in. What else? She called me saying she was going to try applying to my work again. Great. Oh yeah, the boxes too. Half of them were empty this time. Why does she leave me empty boxes? Just throw them away. I swear this is some sort of petty nonsense. Oh yeah, she got sick. It goes back to the migraine thing, but from what she told me, if she sits still at work, then she gets them. And smells and other stuff at work. So she ends up losing her new job because she basically wasn't going. This sucks, but I don't know how to help someone like this. She would call me with questions and what she would do and such. I don't know, honestly. Don't get me wrong, I felt bad, but what can I even do? On 7th of March, my moving day had finally arrived and I got my new keys. I put my neighbor's boxes in front of her door and texted her and left as quickly as possible to avoid her. I realized I was missing my vacuum and couldn't find it for the life of me. I don't really talk to people, so who in the hell else would have it? I seriously considered just abandoning the vacuum, but I really didn't want to buy a new one. So I texted my neighbor if she happened to borrow it at one point. She said yes. She then called me right after to set up a time to get it back to me. I just wanted to go meet up at my old apartment, but she kept insisting to come over to my new one. Well, she's sort of the whole reason I'm moving to begin with. I already know if she finds out where I live, I'm gonna see a stack of boxes piled outside my door. No thanks, I told her. I'll come to the old apartment and meet you there. Well, the next day I got a call from my parents about something urgent and had to cancel on her. Keep in mind, I actually did want my vacuum back, so this really sucks. She calls me asking why I had cancelled, and I try to explain it to her. She was already irritated by me cancelling, it seems, but she asked for my complex name, which I tried to dodge. Then we end the call, which she ends up calling again shortly after to ask for my address. Bitch, give her a rest. When I asked why she needed this, she said, "So I can write it down." Like it was the most normal thing in the world. When I said no, she blew up on me. She said that I had said, "Yes, you can come over to my new apartment," and that I am the one playing games. What? Ugh. I swear to God, don't try to gaslight me. Like, what the hell? Well, then she hangs up on me. I honestly didn't really say anything. I was just so caught off guard by it all. She calls back a few minutes later to literally curse at me and then hangs up again. Then an hour later, she sends me a text message asking for career advice as if nothing had just happened. Like, I don't even know how to react to this. I feel like nothing is real anymore, and I hate myself because I actually responded to her text. She wanted advice on how to get a job from the job I got fired at. So I gave her something half-hearted, like I was just done and wanted this to end. Then she sent me that little text. "You're still coming over tomorrow, right?" Then I lost it. I'm not proud of it. I insulted her, and she hasn't texted back since. Am I the crazy one here? Hellfreezer's note, you're probably not crazy. I mean, I'm not your shrink, so I can't really say. But the thing about interacting with somebody who is clearly mentally ill, like your neighbor, it will take a toll on your own mental health. Now that you're free of it, you'll probably find your demeanor changes overall. Certainly, you'll probably be a lot more relaxed in your home now that you're not wondering about what little boxes are suddenly going to be left for you. I wonder if they were filled with ticky-tacky. 5. Location, New York City. Tonight was the 5th time in 3 months the police have come to my door. The first time in December, I was shocked to have NYPD pound on my door at 7:30 p.m. telling me to keep it down, when I had been working from home quietly all day and gaming with a headset on. I wondered who could be hearing anything from my apartment. I ruled out my next-door neighbor. Spoilers, they were calling, because I'd lived next to her for 4 years, and while the extent of our relationship has been saying hello in the hallway a few times a year, or her leaving alcohol at my door when I was sick 2 years ago was a nice neighborly gesture, I figured that was friendly enough that she wouldn't say something if I was ever loud. Instead, I left a note with my downstairs neighbor, who I had never met, explaining I want to be respectful to my neighbor's space and right to peaceful enjoyment of it, and would be happy to lower my volume if I'm ever loud. Just knock on my door or text me at the number provided. Don't give your neighbors your phone number. She texted me the next day that she never hears noise and hadn't called, but would reach out to me if I'm loud. Police came a second time in February for a noise complaint about 7:30 p.m. on a weekday, when my girlfriend and I had just been watching TV in my apartment. Downstairs neighbor confirmed she didn't call or hear noise, so at this point, I left a note on my next-door neighbor's door explaining the same intentions. I want to respect her space, so just give me a knock or text if I'm ever loud. No response. 2 weeks ago, my girlfriend, her mom, and I were watching the Oscars when the police pounded on the door at 8:30 p.m. Good thing no real crimes were happening. We were just sitting on the couch, watching with the volume at 40% on the TV. Police confirmed they couldn't hear anything when they showed up, but showed me the report they had that said my TV and my girlfriend were loud. I explained this was going on and my efforts to resolve it so far, and how my neighbor hadn't said anything to me at all, and they left. A few days later, at 8 p.m., I knocked on her door to speak with her about these calls, and what we can do to resolve the noise issues before calling the police. I waited a minute, she didn't answer, so I went back to my apartment. 10 minutes later, police knocked on my door asking why I was harassing my neighbor. She apparently said something like I was following her outside and asking her for drinks. I explained to the police the whole situation from start to end, and that I just tried knocking on her door to talk about these calls for the very first time. They understood, advised I avoid her, left, and I emailed and then talked on the phone with my landlord, who was understanding, but wanted to stay hands-off. He said he would speak to her, but finding some step to take before calling the police next time, to give me a chance to respond to whatever her grievance is. Tonight, the police came for the 5th time. Noise complaint. When my girlfriend and I had only talked all day, she took a 3-hour work phone call, and I napped for an hour leading up to the police knocking on my door. Explained this. I said I'll go to the precinct tomorrow to make a report, because this is getting ridiculous, and they left. I'm losing my sanity because this disrupts my peaceful evenings every time I have to have a surprise police visit. I have no idea what to do because this technically may not constitute harassment, but that's exactly what she's doing. I've tried taking rational and reasonable approaches to resolving a neighbor's dispute she's sprung up, and the only thing she wants to do is send police to my door and waste city resources. I'm not sure if this is an attempt to constructively evict me or if she's just insane or what. But what can I do to just have peace of living in my apartment without worrying the police will come because I watched Sopranos or my girlfriend and I had a conversation? Hellfreezer's note: she's definitely harassing you. There can't really be any doubt about that. She's using the police to harass you. You need to get legal with this. You said you were going to go to the police, so I hope you did, and you did file a complaint. It is entirely possible she's hoping to harass you to the point you will just move, because maybe she has someone else that wants the apartment. And your landlord sounds entirely useless in this situation, so they're obviously not going to be of any help with that. I'm curious, did her behavior change round about the time you and your girlfriend got together? Maybe she had a little bit of a crush and didn't have the stones to do anything about it, but now that you're with somebody, she's jealous? Or it could just be that bitch is crazy. Hey everybody, Hellfreezer here, and thank you very much for listening to Naughty Neighbours, episode 36. And thank you very much to everybody who allowed me to use their stories in this video. Before you go, please do hit the like button and subscribe. That lets YouTube know you enjoyed the video, or rather, it lets the YouTube algorithm know you enjoyed the video, and it will then let other people know that they might like it too. Gets me more views, lets me do this longer. If you'd like to support the channel, very easy, you can do that by signing up for my Patreon page, which is linked for you in the description. Support me there for as little as $1 or more a month. You'll also find a link to the Hellfreezer merchandise store, and you can leave a tip for this or any other video by clicking on the heart with a $sign underneath the video. It is all very much appreciated. Okay, now we've no other business today, so let's move along to Hellfreezer's question of the day. And today's question is, do you have a favourite plate? Pretty simple. I do. There used to be two of them. One of them unfortunately got broken, as often happens when plates or cups and things get broke. I've washed it, I'm drying it, and it slips out my hand. Usually when I'm feeling poorly, which is always very, very annoying. I hope this one doesn't break, but if it does, I will have to shell out the cash to buy replacements. And unfortunately, while they were very reasonably priced when I first bought them, I have looked into replacements since then. They're not cheap anymore. They must have gotten very popular all of a sudden. That's my answer. Let me know what you think in a comment below. And before we go, let's take a look at the answer of the day from a previous video. And this one comes from Naughty Neighbours 34, and it was, what's the most fun thing you ever bought from an eBay auction? I swear the guy at the end of the video there, he goes on and on and on. Just wouldn't get to the point when I was trying to hear what the question was. Anyway, most fun thing you've ever bought from an eBay auction, let's see. And today's answer comes from Lauren. The best thing I've ever bought on eBay was a little tiger-eye statue of the Venus of Willendorf. The original is a 4.5-inch statue of a full-figured woman dug up at the archaeological dig near Willendorf, Austria. It dates back to 24,000 to 22,000 BCE, and is the oldest and best-preserved piece of art. She is guessed to have been a portable fertility or prosperity talisman. I found it fascinating that a statue of a fat woman was held in such esteem at that time, because there were so few, and the stark contrast to today. Thank you very much for your answer, Lauren. And with that, I'm going to head off for now, so until next time, thank you very much for listening, and take very good care of yourselves.